So in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 JavaScript concepts that you need to know in order to crack almost any JavaScript interviews. Number 1 is type system. You must be knowing that JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. That means it can change the type of variable in a runtime. For example, suppose I have a variable called myVar and the value I'm assigning is 5. That means the type of the variable myVar is a number. But in the next line itself, you can assign to any string, like immediately the type of the variable changes from number to string. Also, JavaScript can change types almost immediately. Suppose I have this variable myVar equals to 5. Now if I add something and suppose I'm adding a string, what is going to happen? The output of this myVar plus string will become a string. Similarly, if I have a string value, if I have a string number like this, so in this case myVar is going to be a string. But as soon as you add a plus symbol and then myVar, this becomes a number. So this is how JavaScript changes types, and you need to know this type system properly. So in any JavaScript interviews, there will be different type of questions regarding this type of type conversion. So you should properly know how the type system works in JavaScript. The second concept is the scope system. You must be knowing how JavaScript scope system works. There are two types of scopes in JavaScript, like block scope and lexical scope. Suppose you have a function called myFunction. Inside that function, you can define a variable where I equals to 0. And also suppose you have one if block. Inside this if block, you are defining another variable called j. So can you see two types of scopes here? One is in this if block, another one is inside this function block. Whenever you find this kind of curly brace structure, that is a block in JavaScript. And also this function also has these curly braces. Inside that, it creates one scope that is called a block scope. Okay, so as I already told you, that JavaScript has two types of scopes. One is the lexical scope, and if you use var keyword to create a variable, then JavaScript uses the lexical scope. Lexical scope means whenever you create any function, right, like this is a function, that function creates one lexical scope. That also means that this is a if block. Inside the if block, there is no lexical scope. So this j variable, it doesn't have its own scope. This if block does not have its own scope. That means whatever you define inside the if block, that is also defined outside the if block and in this function scope. That is how lexical scope works. And if you use let keyword, suppose I'm using this let keyword to initialize a variable, then the block scope is used. Block scope means this if block is also one block and this function is also one block. That means this if block has its own scope for this let keyword, right? So that means I have defined j inside the if block. That means outside the if block, j will not be present. So that is lexical and block scope. You should have the clear idea about the lexical and block scope for any JavaScript interviews. The third concept is context, or this keyword in JavaScript. Many people have a lot of confusions with this keyword. Let me show you how it works. Suppose you have one object. Inside that, suppose you have one name, my name, okay, and you have a getter function called getName, and it is returning this dot name. You got this keyword. This is called the context of JavaScript. Now if you call this getName function from this object.getName, what will be the return value? Simply it will be name, right? That means the return value is going to be my name, and that is correct. But how this works? When you call this getName function, how this keyword points to this object? Because definitely this keyword is pointing to this object, that's why it is returning this object.name. But how is this possible? You need to know that properly. So the thing is, whenever you call any function with this dot keyword, okay, so we are calling object.getName. In that case, the context of the function is going to be the object. obj, because we are calling in this way, object.getName. Now giving you another example, suppose I am having one function called f equals to object.getName. So this function f will store the function getName. Now if I call the function f, what do you think? What will be the return value? Is it going to be name my name? No, in this case the return value will be undefined. But why? Remember I told you that whenever you use this dot keyword to call a function, then only we set the context as the object. But in this case we are calling this function without any dot keyword. Then this function getName is going to be executed, but the context is not there. So this keyword will not point to this object. This keyword will point to something else. If you're running this in browser, then this keyword will point to the window object. So you need to understand this. The context of a function is determined at a runtime, how we are calling the function. If you're calling the function with this dot keyword, then whatever is coming before the dot, that is going to be the context or the value of this keyword. Okay. Now there's another way to call this function. Suppose I'm calling this with f.call, right? Or we can use f.apply. In that case we have the flexibility to add the context. So if I add the context as object, in the first parameter we can pass object. For apply function also we can add the context obj. So in this case we are explicitly saying that okay, call this function with the context of this object. That means that this keyword will point to this object. So the return value is going to be my name, both the cases. Are you clear about this? This is really important. You should have a clear understanding about this. So of course these three concepts are not all, but if you try to understand these three concepts and learn about it, read about it, try different things, then you will have a clear understanding of a lot of things in JavaScript. And I'm sure that in some interviews you will get a lot of questions from these three concepts. So if you like this video, please hit like, and if you have any questions then let me know in the comment section. And if you like my videos, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.